What surprised me most was how Alex described working at 7 as just what you did. It wasn't framed as a tragedy, but as a necessity. That normalization says a lot about how survival can overshadow childhood.
It's heartbreaking, but also statistically common. According to the International Labor Organization, over 160 million children are engaged in child labor globally, and most of them do it to support their families, not for extra money or skills.
But why do we rarely hear these stories? Is it because people feel ashamed? Or is it just easier for society to look away and pretend childhood is always carefree?
There's a kind of collective denial, I think. If we admit how many kids are forced to grow up fast, it challenges the comfortable narrative that hard work always leads to opportunity. For some, it's just about getting through the day.
And the economic systems don't help. Minimum wage jobs, lack of affordable childcare, and unstable housing all trap families in cycles where kids have to pitch in. It's a structural issue, not just a personal one.
If that's true, then what could actually make a difference? Are there policies that have worked anywhere to break this cycle? Or is it mostly left to charities and luck?
Here's the takeaway. Resilience is remarkable, but it shouldn't be required just to survive childhood. Real change means confronting uncomfortable truths and pushing for policies like universal basic income or expanded family support that give kids a real chance at being kids. What surprised me most was how quickly people jumped to conclusions about that shirt. Some saw billionaire, others read bully free, and almost nobody paused to check what it actually said. This is Mindset Unmasked, where we dig into the stories behind our snap judgments.
That instant reaction is fascinating. Psychologists call it confirmation bias. We tend to notice what fits our expectations and filter out the rest. In a 2018 study, over 60% of participants misread ambiguous messages when primed with a certain idea beforehand.
But what if someone's just nervous or distracted? I mean, I've totally misread people's faces in class because I assumed they were mad at me, when really, they were just tired.
Exactly. Those tiny misinterpretations can snowball. If you assume someone's unfriendly, you might avoid them, and then they never get a chance to show who they really are.
And it's not just personal. In hiring, for example, first impressions can sway decisions even before a single question is asked. There's data showing that interviewers form opinions in the first 30 seconds.
So how do we stop ourselves from falling into that trap? Is it just about slowing down? Or is there more to it?
Here's the takeaway. Noticing our own expectations is the first step. If you catch yourself making a snap judgment, pause and ask, what am I missing? That small shift can open up a whole new perspective. Only after 2 promotions did Alex realize his rent subsidy vanished and his net income barely changed. That's the kind of catch, 2-2, that makes people question if striving is worth it.
It's not just anecdotal. According to a 2022 Pew survey, over 60% of low-income workers reported losing benefits or facing new fees when their earnings increased. The system's design can actually penalize ambition.
But what if those penalties are there on purpose? Like, who actually benefits when people stay stuck? I keep thinking about landlords or even employers who rely on cheap labor.
That's a sharp point. The structure seems to reinforce dependency, which can serve those in power, whether it's keeping wages low or ensuring a steady pool of tenants who can't afford to move.
And the barriers aren't just financial. There's also the paperwork, the wait lists, the constant uncertainty. In some states, a single missed form can mean losing childcare support for months.
So, is it even possible to fix this? Or does the system just adapt to keep people in their place, no matter what reforms get tried?
Here's the takeaway. Unless policies are designed to phase out benefits gradually and reward real progress, we'll keep seeing talented people punished for trying to get ahead. Only after 2 iterations of seeing Alex step up first at work, then in her personal life, did Riley start pulling away. That pattern fascinates me because it's rarely about the actual change, but more about what it stirs up in the people around us.
It's true, and research backs that up. A 2022 study from the University of Michigan found that nearly 40% of people reported feeling threatened when a close friend made a major positive life change. The discomfort isn't always jealousy. Sometimes it's fear of being left behind.
Can you explain that in more detail? I always thought if someone I cared about was doing better, I'd just be happy for them. Why does it get so complicated?
It's partly about identity. When someone close to us grows, it can force us to look at our own choices. If we're not ready for that, it's easier to distance ourselves than to confront what we might want to change.
And sometimes, the relationship has an unspoken balance, like who's the advice giver? Who's the one needing help? When that flips, it can unsettle both people. There's a vulnerability in admitting you're no longer the strong one.
So, is there a way to stop that spiral before it gets out of hand? I mean, if you notice yourself feeling weird about someone else's growth, what do you actually do?
Here's the takeaway. The first step is to name what you're feeling, even if it's uncomfortable. Then, try to talk about it honestly sometimes. Just saying, "I'm struggling with this change," can diffuse a lot of tension. Supporting someone's growth doesn't mean you're losing them. It can actually deepen the relationship if you let it. Only after Riley admitted she'd acted unfairly did I realize how often we reach for quick explanations instead of facing what's really going on inside us. It's easier to say, "I was just tired," than to ask ourselves why someone else's growth unsettles us.
That's so true. Research from the Gottman Institute shows that genuine repair in relationships starts with self-reflection, not just surface apologies. When we skip that step, we risk repeating the same patterns, sometimes for years.
But what if you're scared of what you'll find? Like, if you ask yourself why, and the answer is jealousy or insecurity, isn't it tempting to just avoid it?
Absolutely. But here's the takeaway. Creating space for those uncomfortable truths is the only way to build trust. Otherwise, we're just pretending, and people can sense that.
And accountability isn't just about saying sorry. It's about naming the real reason behind our reactions. For example, instead of, "I snapped because I was stressed," try, "I felt threatened by your progress, and that made me defensive." That level of honesty changes everything.
So, do you think it's possible to repair things if only one person is willing to dig that deep? Or does it have to be mutual?
Repair is always stronger when both people are honest, but even one person's courage can shift the dynamic. The key is to start with yourself. Ask why before you react, and be willing to own the answer, no matter how messy it feels.
I partly agree, but I keep thinking about how a single, genuine apology can sometimes shift years of tension more than any formal mediation ever could.
That's true. Harvard's Making Caring Common project found that when students felt truly listened to, their willingness to cooperate increased by over 40%. It's not just about words, it's about the intent behind them.
But what if the other person isn't ready to listen? I mean, sometimes you try to understand, but it feels like you're talking to a wall.
That's where patience comes in. Empathy isn't always instant, but even small moments like pausing before reacting can open doors that seemed sealed shut.
And those moments add up. In community studies, neighborhoods with higher reported empathy had fewer conflicts escalate into bigger issues. It's a ripple effect.
So maybe it's not about fixing everything at once, but about choosing to understand, even if it's just one conversation at a time.
Exactly. And sometimes, that's the quiet turning point, the moment when someone feels seen, and things start to change.
Here's the takeaway. Real change often starts with the courage to listen and the humility to understand, not just to respond. This week, try offering a sincere apology or asking someone how they really feel and notice what shifts. Thank you for joining us as we explored the quiet power of understanding. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it.